As usual, a lot is going on in the world, and we'll be talking about that here on World Edition here on Pod TV. It looks like a star-studded Georgia rally took place on yesterday. So Harris and Obama pushed early voting in a tight race there in Georgia, and also Bruce Springsteen was there as well. So it looks like there was a big rally there, and Trump is visiting Arizona, and it does look like everybody is saying that it's going to be a tight election. And in a different kind of news, a 15-year-old was accused of killing his parents and three siblings in their Washington State home. So a Seattle teen is suspected of fatally shooting his parents and those three siblings in a ritzy suburb. And apparently, he tried to frame his brother, claiming he was caught watching porn. So that's something else that we're seeing as well. And the U.S. has reached 102 million Baltimore Bridge settlement. So that's something that we're seeing. And the Menendez brothers could be resentenced. And for those of you that are into sports, the World Series is about to begin. So definitely folks will be paying attention. And this is two storied franchises, the Dodgers and the Yankees, that will be playing against each other and all along those lines. So we'll see who wins in that particular elections. And Texas politicos are launching a full court press against Harris ahead of her border state campaign rally, asking her to apologize. I'm thinking apologize for the immigration situations and all along those lines. But she is to call attention to abortion rights. Biden, as I said yesterday, will be issuing a historic apology to those that are Native American background and all along those lines. And the Harris campaign ads are using John Kelly's words, describing Trump as a fascist. So 13 former Trump administration officials signed an open letter backing up John Kelly's criticism of Trump. So definitely that's something that we're seeing as well. And definitely Nobel Prize winners, 23 of them, are endorsing Harris and warned that Trump would endanger the future of science. So 23 Nobel Prize winning economists called Harris' economic plan vastly superior to Trump's. So that's something that we see in the news as well. And definitely Steve Ratner is saying that Trump's mass deportation and trade war plans will tank the economy. So that's something else going on as well. So definitely a lot of things are going on in that regards. And of course, we've got world events as well. So let me get to some of those and see what's happening around the rest of the world, just not with our folks here in terms of the campaigns and everything, even though we've got just a little over a week to go till election night, and we'll know exactly who will be president unless it winds up being a long night of counts and maybe even a couple of days of counts if it's that contested as some people are saying. But we'll find out on the 5th, which isn't that far away. Like I said, I think we've got about less a week from Tuesday. So a week from Tuesday will be when the elections will be held. U.S. allies say they have evidence of North Korean troops deployed to Ukraine. So it looks like that's something else that we're seeing. And North Korean troops fighting for Russia and Ukraine are fair game, U.S. warns Putin. So definitely that's something that we're seeing in the news as well. And Israel killed 3 journalists in Lebanon, and there was a new massacre in Gaza. So definitely Israel strike kills 38 people in Gaza's Khan Yunis and 3 journalists, as I said earlier, as well. And they are saying that the children were among the dead, as 38 were killed in the Israeli attack. So definitely that's something that we're seeing. And they're saying that Gaza ceasefire and hostage release talks are to resume in the coming days. So Iran is bracing for Israeli retaliation, but Israel and U.S. are to negotiate ceasefire talks as Gaza and Lebanon wars rage on. So it definitely looks like a lot's going on in the Middle East as well. And the Canada Sikh community have been rocked by violence, is what authorities are saying. And if there's some folks are asking, is Canada a safe destination for Indian students? And India's recalled envoy has a warning on radicalization. So definitely A diplomat who was targeted by Trudeau says, I'm the first Indian envoy to be persona non grata. So definitely that's something else that's going on as well. So definitely we'll see how this all plays out and what things go in that space. And there's some people that are saying that Musk has been in secret contact with Putin since 2022, and that's according to a bombshell new report. So they're saying that Elon Musk has regularly spoken with Putin and faced implicit threats, according to a report that is out there now. And Putin once asked Elon Musk to not activate Starlink over Taiwan as a favor to Xi Jinping, is what one of the reports is saying as well. So definitely we'll see how this all plays out. And it looks like at the Divine, Putin closed out the global summit aimed at reshaping the world order, that being the BRICS summit on yesterday and all along those lines. So definitely we'll see how this all goes out as Putin welcomes Iran, India, and China to the BRICS summit to discuss new world order to challenge the West. So it does look like a lot of folks, including even here on this network, have talked about the impact of BRICS and what BRICS may do in terms of the economy and all along those lines. And Georgia's election could be a turning point for the Caucasus Nation. And definitely there are some folks that are even in that country having fears of a stolen election and a return to the Kremlin's orbit. And some people are feeling that Georgia may go back to being under the control of the Kremlin. So we'll see how this all plays out as well. And fearing China's hypersonic weapons, the U.S. Navy is seeking to arm ships with Patriot missiles. So we definitely are seeing an increase in military moves in that way also. And King Charles says the past can't be changed, but critics want Britain to reckon with slavery. And King Charles definitely told the summit the past can't be changed as that was going on. And King Charles and Keir Starmer are bracing for a reparation debate at the Commonwealth Summit. And King Charles also drank kava during a ritual in Samoa. So definitely that's something else that we're seeing as well. And 5 IDF reservists were killed in a rocket attack on troops in southern Lebanon, and 19 were injured, and that was during the fighting with Hezbollah in Lebanon last night. So like I said, all of these war efforts are going on throughout the world and all along those lines. And it looks like the international court prosecutor who charged Netanyahu is facing sexual misconduct accusations of his own. So definitely that's something else going on as well. And like I said yesterday, Canada is to cut immigration levels in a major reversal, according to Trudeau. So definitely we'll see how this all plays out. And gangs in Haiti have opened fire. They did that yesterday and hit a UN helicopter mid-air as violence surged. So U.S. was to evacuate 20 embassy staff from Haiti following the car attack and the intensifying gang violence. So gang violence in the Caribbean reaches further than Haiti, is what some folks are saying in that space. Definitely. And of course, the rape trial that could change France is still going on. So a soldier, a nurse, a lorry driver, and dozens more. Those are just some of the men accused of a rape and assault of Gazelle Pellicot. So definitely, like I said, a lot's going on in the world, including climate change news, where the UN report says that the planet is to warm by 3.1 Celsius without greater action. So the world is on track for a catastrophic 3 degrees Celsius warning, according to the UN. So we're going to bring in the panelists and see what they've got to say about a number of these things. Maybe they've heard of some other news items as well. And by the way, it looks like India was evacuating 1 million people as tropical cyclone Dana neared. So definitely that's a massive undertaking to try to get 1 million people moved. I mean, we haven't heard enough time when we're trying to move tens, if not hundreds of thousands. And they're even saying Tropical Storm Trami wreaked havoc in the Philippines, and at least 26 were dead there as well. So, and last but not least, industrial wastelands to wildlife oasis. It looks like there are several poor nations that are rich in nature, but they need help in protecting it. So the UN Nature Talks debates rules for genetic information, as well as looking at ways that they can save a lot of this wonderful world nature and all in that space. So definitely we'll see how this all goes on. And Macron has pledged 108 million at Lebanon aid confab and slams Israel for sowing barbarism. So the Paris Conference for Lebanon raises 1 billion in pledges for humanitarian aid and all along those lines. But like I said, I'm sure we can talk about a number of these stories and see what people have got to say about a number of these things. I'll bring up Rick Rosner,
So
also bring up one of the founders of the network, Kimberly Calhoun, and also we've got Sasha Starr, and later on we'll be talking about his show as well. That'll be coming up at 11 o'clock. But like I said, it looks like the world is as always, so it looks like a lot of things
with
are taking place.
with 11 days to go, the early voting is strong with about 5 million people voting a day. So putting it on track for almost 80 million early votes cast. Not as many as 2020 when there were more than 100 million because of COVID, but still pretty strong. And one of the strongest trends is in the 6 states that track gender, women are outvoting men by 10%, 55 to 45, which speaks to women being pissed off about Trump and perhaps abortion.
Yeah, could be pissed
I
off
mean,
about that.
I agree. Mark, you mentioned a situation that happened yesterday of the teen that killed his family, but there was also another shooting here in our backyard, basically a teen shooting at their school, the high school, Cary High School. It was a 17-year-old. Nobody that I'm aware of so far has died from this shooting. But I'm thinking there's way too many teens having access to guns. This particular teen had two guns in their possession. So, um, I think people need to be a little more proactive if you have children and you have guns. You either need to lock them up or you need to teach your children some serious respect with the guns and everything. Yes, Rick.
There's a thing called biometric trigger lock, which is
Hmm.
a thing that goes over the trigger. It costs about $80,
Yep.
and you can leave a gun around, and only your fingerprint unlocks the trigger. It takes a third of a second to pull off the lock if you need it fast.
I mean,
But
my husband was a firm believer that, and he grew up on a farm, and so his dad had guns sitting out on the table, and the kids never touched them. We're out in the country, and he always had easy, and they were a firm believer that if you had a gun and had it locked up, then why have a gun? But the kids never thought to touch it. It doesn't mean that there probably wasn't a kid who had mental issues back in the day and took the gun and shot their family. I mean, there were plenty of situations where, men were abusing their families, and eventually one of the kids get the guns and shoots them. And I've heard plenty of those stories here. But and in fact, one of them was a police officer. Now he's a police officer now, and he would share his story as to why he became a police officer. But um, I just think that there's a lack of, like you said, get the biometric lock or be responsible. Or if you have kids, like my husband and I felt like we were well enough that we could protect our home and just lock the guns up when we had kids through our years of the kids. And as soon as they left, we took the guns back out, started going to the shooting range, cleaning. We always cleaned them, but I just don't think people are responsible enough anymore. I just don't.
Well, they're not responsible probably, but I do know that there are organizations, even my brother's Slingshot Club, which is that popular car, as y'all have heard me say it, I kind of compare it to the Batmobile and everything. They were actually selling some gun locks and or giving away some gun locks not that long ago, and all in that space. So it was wonderful that they gave those because they wanted to make sure that these kind of accidents didn't happen and everything like that. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out and all along those lines. So it'll be interesting to see what folks' reactions are and whether we see more people that are trying to do safety measures in that space. So definitely it'll be interesting to go in that regards. I don't know how it is in Canada, Sasha. Is there a lot of gun violence there in Canada, or is it less gun violence in Canada? And how, if it's less, how come it is less?
No, there's much less gun violence. In fact, I even don't remember when the last time was reported that somebody died as a result of gun use. I don't recall that, although I'm sure there are cases. must be some cases. So it's part of American culture, and I think in that respect, Canada is a safer, much safer place.
So yeah, Canada has just a little more than 1/3 the murder rate of the U.S. Canada's at 2.27 per 100,000. U.S. at 6.3.
Yeah. Mind you, why I said that there are many less cases is that even those cases that are happening in Canada, they're not wildly reported. There could be somewhere in the news that somebody shot and somebody was killed, but it's not becoming part of national discussion, and it's very unfortunate that such thing happened at all. But that's about it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and everything. One of the other things that I saw in the news, and I don't know what folks' thoughts about this are and everything, but the Pope is always making comments and trying to keep things going in terms of his statements and everything. I think one of his latest statements was that he felt that there was too much concentration on wanting to get ahead, kind of having that material consumption and all along those lines. So he was actually making a little bit of an attack on that. So as I know that some of us here, including you, Sasha, and others have been involved in the investment world, does he have a valid point or all along those lines, or should he just know that that is kind of a world situation where people will be trying to get maybe a little bit ahead and get making some money and all along those lines, because it does seem like he was trying to take a crack on the materialism of the modern day society.
I don't think that any serious analyst should cover Trump and trying to find any sense in whatever he's talking about or offering or doing anything. It's all lies and madmen talking.
Yeah.
Two Trump things. Trump, continues to trash talk the world according to the Drudge.
Surprised about how the Americans are about.
Trump says the U.S. is the garbage can of the world, which he's blaming immigrants for everything again. And he's going on Joe Rogan's podcast today in trying to get young male voters. Did you mention that already?
I mentioned just briefly, but not in detail. So if you want to get some greater details.
So Rogan has like 17.5 million followers on YouTube and similar number on Spotify. So he might actually, pick up some young male votes. There's a big gender gap between under 30 women and under 30 men in preference for Harris over Trump.
Well,
but I mean, if you're a fan of not Trump, you're hoping he goes on and he says some stupid crap, which is always a risk for him.
That's always a risk. And what was that people's reaction to the town hall? I understand that was supposed to have been a debate situation where both of them were supposed to be there, but it wound up being just Kamala Harris there, and she was making her case for what she thought should go on as well. But definitely, what was other folks' take on that?
And I didn't hear her say much new. Her responses to the questions were not entirely direct. She tended to do what these people do, which is take the question and kind of push it in a direction where she's got an answer she's comfortable giving, which doesn't necessarily 100% answer every single question. But I think she did fine. I don't know if she changed any minds. I mean, at this point, 35 million people have voted early, which is, it's like 23% of everybody. So the election is nearly 1/4 over already.
Yep, and definitely folks are out there campaigning. I know that the last couple of times I've caught mass transit, I've seen people grabbing folks in order to go get them to the polls and making sure that they were able to vote. And they'll probably be doing that all the way till next, I think it's next Sunday, or it might be next Saturday. But then the election itself will be on the 5th, which is that following Tuesday and everything. But yeah, there was definitely a crew of folks that are out there. I think I said on So World Politics yesterday, I talked to one of our local county commissioners, and he was saying that they would hope to get 80% here in Durham, but they're not getting that number. So even though you're right, the voting numbers are up, there are still some people that are concerned in certain cities. I'm sure that, as he said, there are probably people in Philly that have a similar concern. So they are wondering if they're getting enough of the votes out, because I think that they feel that they are behind in the amount that they would like to get out. And I don't know if that's the case just for the Democrats, or if that's the case for both the Democrats and the Republicans. But it'll be interesting to find out how this all plays out and what goes on in that space. But like you said, it's 55-45 women to man, and all along those lines.
I mean, of course, some of those women are Trump voters,
yes.
And some of the men are Harris voters. But
so there are some people that are crossing in that space and everything along those lines.
I do think that it is a positive look at what's going on with Harris, in the fact that, yes, with more women coming out, because of the gender gap split, and women are more reliable voters than men, the larger number for women coming out, you have a higher percentage for them voting for Harris than men voting for Trump, in a sense where I think the gender gap is roughly I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but yeah, if there's a larger number of women coming out, that's a positive for Harris than more so a positive for Trump.
In 2020, there was a 6-point gap. It was women 53 over men 47% of the vote.
Yeah, so a 6-point gap. Hey, Jacoby, along those same lines, I had read an article yesterday, and we know that incident that took place at UNC with the folks who claimed that they were protecting the flag and all along those lines. But the article I was reading was talking about this male gap and how a lot of it, because apparently they organized a festival, I think it was called Freedom Day or something like that, and all along those lines. But they had some rock musicians, independent rock musicians that were playing, as well as some that might have a greater name recognition. But it sounds like they were talking about the dissatisfaction that some men were having with this whole notion of toxic masculinity and other things that they felt were an attack on them. So they were saying that there was a rise in this male movement and all along those lines. So I was just wondering, did you see that in your travels around the triangle? And if so, how is that going to impact the election?
I do think that this is going to be an interesting election, because I think there are going to be a lot of coalitions that are going to move differently than we're expecting. Yes, Trump is running on this whole masculinity thing. That's been his whole shtick for the past month. He's also pushing in terms of he's running it heavily on the male and the cultural wars. He's not running on economy. They did a study about where they're spending their ad money right now. They're spending roughly about upwards of 20 million on commercials around cultural wars, like the transgender issue, which isn't that big, but they're only spending 5 million on actually the economy, or talking about the economy, because that, as much as we say it's the economy, stupid, it's really not the economy that's really going to move a lot of these individuals as much as we think. Just as Mark, you're pointing out the toxic masculinity piece, and there's some other issues that are going to move people in different ways. I do think that there's going to be a different coalition to come out this time. So it's going to be interesting to see the polling numbers and how that comes out. And honestly, Sasha, you've been calling this for a long time, and they made the big news. I don't know, Mark, if we've talked about it, but where Elon Musk and Putin have been having secret conversations. So now you go on the issue where Trump and Putin, that's a connection. Trump hated EVs. Elon gave him donated to him. Then Trump now loves EVs. That just happened this year. So now, what are the conversations that Trump has been having, with Elon has been having with Putin? And is he the go-between now between Putin and Trump? I mean, there's just so much stuff.
Yeah, but the other thing that I added before Sasha answers that is that apparently there was some Starlink that he did not want the areas, because of Elon, of course, controls that with where Starlink goes, and that's one of the things that I had mentioned. So how much of a player, even in the Ukraine Russia war and other things, is Elon Musk going to be, and a player in this election, which is kind of what Jacoby is alluded to and everything. So, Sasha, what's your take on Elon Musk?
So it's much deeper situation than just say Musk is a good man or he's not good man. Trump is a good man or maybe he's not. Putin is a good man or maybe he's not such a good man. This is where you stand on U.S. And not just U.S., world politics, at least from the developed world. There was a certain line drawn from 1945 up until 2016. And doesn't matter who was at power at the time, Democrats or Republicans, that line was definitely there to stay. Now, Trump made great efforts to actually get away from this line, from this politics or so on. He is a big fan of a strong man. To him, any issues, values, or anything has nothing. He is transactional president who is each transaction means what's in it for me. That's all what he's doing. So he's dividing people. He's going, his first trip when he became president was not to France or UK. He despises the leaders of free world, France, the UK, doesn't matter. He treats them as they're just bureaucrats. They were elected for 4 years, and after 4 years, they're nothing. Garbage. Well, I should have spent my time to talk to them even. So he's treating the strongman on the other hand, like Putin, Emperor Xi, the Rocket Man, the Ayatollah from Iran. He treats them because they will rule for life. So he's treating them as his real stuff where you can deal with and you can get certain what's in it for me stuff a little bit here and there. And he's not interested to deal with the democracies where there will be nothing for him personally. So he's not interested that he wants to get out of NATO, he wants to get out of Europe, he wants to get out of everything, build the wall here, and tariffs and other stuff anywhere there. So now, coming back to your question. So if you treat Putin as the stellar of the world order, and he is a strong man, of course, then Trump, what's his name, Elon Musk, little things like J.D. Vance and other idiots, they all should flock to Putin. They have to all make residences in Kremlin. Putin will accommodate them, and they can for good stay there just as well. This is one train of thought. Now, if you're coming from the proposition of a power, an international power that was there since 1945 until 2016, and American people want to have that arrangement and restore whatever was already broken by Trump in his first term, then it's a different story. Then all contacts between Trump and what's his name, Elon Musk, have to be absolutely forbidden, unraveled, and Elon Musk has to go under huge internal investigation by FBI because he is in strategic businesses. The X Space, the Teslas are all strategic in its nature. So if he is allowed to have contact with our enemies, still enemies, until Trump will come to power, they have to be all prosecuted.
So Musk has tens of billions of dollars of contracts with the U.S. government, $15 billion for just SpaceX, not including Starlink. I don't think there's any other single person who gets as much grant money from the U.S. And if I'm looking at a Rolling Stone article that I can't read because it's paywalled, but if Trump gets elected, Elon Musk could be given, tens of millions, maybe hundreds of millions in tax breaks.
Well, also you got to think about not only the accounts that he has with the government, but also the top secret accounts that he has with the government in terms of his connections within and his ties already there. And that's the scariest part. I was actually watching a show when this news actually broke about him having those secret calls with Putin. And there was actually a Republican strategist, one that I truly enjoy listening to. And he even, goes on strategy, and he's supporting Trump. But then when this news broke, it was interesting to see how he was even scared and talking about, well, there's a problem because now you have a man with connections with top secret documents and connections within our government, ties within our government, who's now having secret calls back and forth with Putin. So the gentleman, the Republican strategist, and honestly, he's a fair guy. So that's why I enjoy listening to him. It was like, hey, this could be a problem, and this is a problem that I am not comfortable with. And that was a good thing to hear for me, because again, for the past few days, I've been trying to figure out where this line is. And for him, it was neat. It was interesting to learn that that's a line for him that I don't know if he could cross if that comes to fruition. So it's good to hear that there is a line and there is something that I can't go by. So that was what I found interesting when that news broke for me.
Shaquille, any take on this whole thing with Elon Musk and with other things that are going on in terms of the election and all along those lines? We were talking about the town hall earlier, and like I said, I did not watch it. I saw your comment that even CNN doesn't think that she did fine and that it wasn't entirely direct. It was a major understatement. But any other things that you wanted, either about her town hall or about this news that is breaking around?
That was a comment that was directed at Rick, actually, when he said that it's not that her answers weren't entirely direct. They weren't direct at all. She didn't even really answer some of the questions. So some of them are difficult questions to answer. Tell me what your weaknesses are. And she listed as one of her weaknesses that she sometimes surrounds herself with a team of people whose opinions she needs to carefully consider. How is that a weakness? So I don't think that she did very well, and even CNN doesn't think that she did very well.
Well, just one Dana Bash at CNN said she didn't close the deal.
It wasn't just Dana Bash. They also had a panel, a group panel, and that was basically the consensus. It was also quite visible how annoyed, I think, Anderson Cooper was getting with her, with her lack of answers about the wall and the funding for the wall and things like that. And I'm going to stand by what I said before. This is a problem of the Democrats' own making. They could have dealt with things differently had they been prepared to listen to some of the feedback they were getting, but they kept telling everybody that what we could see with our own eyes wasn't true. And this is, if they are going to lose, this is why I think they're going to lose. On top of the fact that what she's proposing as far as policies of increasing taxes and increasing government services is not something that I think works very well under any circumstances, but also is not really what people are asking for right now.
So here's the answer I wish she'd given when asked about the wall. 2/3 of the 2,000-mile border between us and Mexico is the Rio Grande River, where there's a river, you have much less need for a wall. You need different technology to patrol the river. So where you can put up a wall, the 650 miles of land instead of river, put up a big old wall. The rest of it, use different technologies and different new ideas to control.
Yeah, the total cost of that wall that the Democrats voted against in the House and the Senate, or in the House, was $5 billion. I think anybody who's American, I was actually quite surprised because that seems like a relatively small figure considering how much money the US spends on other things. So $5 billion was the cost of the wall, and that was considered to be wasteful and, archaic and all of that by Democrats. I don't think it's unreasonable for the everyday family, some of whom are struggling, some of whom are gravitating towards Donald Trump, to say, wait a minute, how many tens of billions have we spent on immigration? I'm cognizant of Sasha's comments earlier on the World Politics show that I was not part of, where he said, the replacement the replacement babies, the people aren't having kids enough. Oh, that's correct. But as I've said before, and will continue to say now, make the immigration program fairer so that people from all over the world have the opportunity to put an application in and be seen, rather than allowing people to come in, live there for 10 years, and then they have children, and then people say, well, you can't send them back, you're going to break up families. You're exacerbating the problem that already existed, that people were already complaining about. And I think it's worth reminding Americans that Donald Trump actually wanted to give the dream as a pathway to citizenship, but didn't want chain migration. And that was opposed.
So just to point out a couple of things on immigration, which you pointed out incorrectly. Donald Trump's only proposal for immigration is mass deportation. He actually wants to remove birthright citizenship and actually even deport the individuals there. What Kamala Harris did on CNN, the CNN panel did not say that she did horrible. They said it was actually a mixed bag. Mostly just the Republican pundits pointed out that, oh, well, it was so horrible. Many of actually the Democrat pundits were the ones that were more balanced that said it was a mixed bag. She had some good. She also had a few bad. They pointed out the border wall issue. The border wall issue itself, her best answer could have been it was a compromise. Regardless of talking about all the details of what's in and out and the problems with the border wall, she did point out the fact that Donald Trump did take the money, only built a very sliver piece of the border wall where he wasted all the money and actually tried to use his companies or his partners to build the rest of the wall. So there's a whole lot of issues with the border wall, but there was a compromise. It wasn't the fact that the Democrats in the House and the Senate voted against it. It was the fact that Donald Trump got the Republican Party to vote against it. Also, in terms of the immigration plan, what you legitimately just said, Shaq, is actually what Kamala Harris pointed out in her immigration plan. Talked about how we needed a pathway to citizenship. The problem with the birthright citizenship is the fact that most of the immigration issue is due to people overstaying their visas and so on and so forth and getting stuck here and not being able to get to the court, in and out of the court system. So that's an issue more so than the people actually crossing the border. These are just facts that I'm pointing out. I know you laugh and want to look away, but it's actually true. You can actually, they're well documented, and look them up. Also, another thing, since you actually trusted CNN on the actual debate, the town hall, one of the things that they pointed out in that town hall, or actually the next day, is where they talked about how they did a study and just had people do blind views of the actual policies without actually knowing whose policy it was. Most people by a long shot were actually on the Kamala Harris policies. So again, what the problem that comes into play that we're looking at is the fact that they're looking at the misinformation has set in. Mostly Democrat presidents have balanced the budget more so than Republicans have. But people consider Republicans better on the budget than actually Democrats. So it's the same issue that's falling into play now. They look at Donald Trump and say, oh, he's better on the economy. But again, they like the policies of Harris.
Hold on a second. One thing is, I think Sasha had his hand up, but we do have Steve here, and I don't know how long we got Steve here for. So if Sasha can defer, I just want to hear Steve and whether he had gone to the Tim Walz campaign and any other things that he want to add, because he's usually here for a limited amount of time. So I hope you can defer, Sasha.
I wanted to mention something about Kamala Harris. Had difficulties with this question about the wall, whether she wants to build a wall or she's not building a wall. So I found the satisfactory answer to that because I was furious that she couldn't make any meaningful answer to that question. And it's a very simple question. And you should have expected that question, yet there was no meaningful answer at all. And the same question was drilled at her 4 times by Anderson Cooper. That's very upsetting. However, she explained it later on when she was asked about what are her weaknesses. And she answered, one of my weaknesses is that I cannot be very quick answering any single question without first think about it find more information, analyzing it, and all that stuff. Just plausible, except one thing: that such important question as the wall. She should have studied that, and she should have analyzed that definitely before this town hall meeting. The best result she would achieve if she would say that there are merits for building the wall and against building the wall. And in my next administration, hopefully if I win, I will study it with my counterparts, with Congress, with the Senate, and we hopefully will find satisfactory solution. That would have been the best, probably, what she could have done.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey,
I
Steve,
didn't hear
hold on
that
a second.
answer, but I can relate. I'm a slow thinker, and it happened to me yesterday where when I get into haggling, I don't think fast enough. And my wife and I sold some gold to buy engagement rings for our kids, and the offer, they gave us a lowball offer, and I came back and I screwed up the haggling. And I didn't even figure out I screwed it up till about 2 hours after it was done. So
Yeah.
I understand that.
That happened. Hey, Steve, you're here and everything. So, any comments that you want to make? And did you make it to the? I know Tim Waltz was there.
No, I just had too much going on yesterday. I've gone to so many events. I'm done doing the events thing. You got, I mean, I know Tim Walls. I spoke to him briefly. I work with him professionally through my firm that I'm a partner in, and but I didn't feel like being in line for 5 hours to meet him. So I am meeting Joe Biden later this afternoon. She's in Cary, and I've been asked to welcome her to an area. So, and then I heard Obama's here in Charlotte. I got invited, but and then I think he may be coming on Monday. I'm going to the White House on Monday. I got invited to be there for the White House Diwali reception. So I might be living you guys on Wednesday from the White House. I think it's in the East Wing of the White House. So I'm going to be going up there for the day. So hopefully if I get to DC on time, I'll be live from the Capitol. But before I take off, not much. I'm hearing that it's still a tight race. And, I think the undecided voters, that's what it's going to come down to. I think that, the economy, immigration, reproductive rights, these all seem to be the issues that are surfacing. And, I think it's going to be a close race. I think 290, 285 will probably be what either one hits. Maybe 300, but I think it's going to come down to North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia. And who knows? I mean, if the poll numbers are what they were last time, then Trump's probably have a good chance. But if undecideds aren't going to do that. And yesterday on WPDF, we had a good talk about tariffs, and talk about that next week. Tariffs, they really help the economy, and Trump's policies actually hurt the economy because of leading to more trade wars and price wars and stuff like that.
Hey, just really quickly, appreciate that. Just really quickly, and this is something that came out, and I don't know how much the common man pays attention to economists and everything, but there was this letter that went out. Apparently, it was the Nobel Peace Prize winners and several others that are backing Kamala's plan and all along those lines. So this, I guess, is geared more toward Shaquille and Sasha, since I know that they play in those games and everything in terms of investments and funds and things like that. Does anybody really pay attention to what economists say, and if they come out with an endorsement? Because like I said, that was out there that these 28 known economists came out and backed Kamala, even said that her plan was going to be better as well. But do people pay attention to these kind of pundits that are quote unquote experts?
I'm afraid that average voter doesn't give a damn. Neither he understands anything about the policies, economies.
I think they do.
No,
I mean,
no,
I never really.
very small percentage, very small, and it's not going to decide election. Also, very small percentage, actually on both camps, the Democrats and Republicans, they give a damn on Trump's history, impeachments, law cases against him. So very little. They all don't want to pay extra 5 cents a gallon. That's the most important thing for them. The groceries, if a bunch of bananas cost $1.05, and they want to get it lower to $1. That is important. The rents are important. This stuff. So that's where the election will be decided. And I don't know what would convince them that Trump is a better deal than Harris. Only one thing is that Trump has been around for quite some time, for last 8 years. His name was around, okay, impeached, the convicted felon, but still, okay, so it's our son of a bitch. He's there, okay, we know, okay, so he'll do this and he'll do that, but it will last only 4 years, and okay, so we'll. Now, Kamala Harris, on the other hand, where is she? I mean, where is she from? Why should we vote for her, even if she's the best thing in politics since sliced bread, and she's so bright and she's so wonderful? So we don't know really what she's going to do when she'll become president. Maybe she'll do well. What's happened if she's not going to do well? So should you take a risk?
All right, so I'm not sure how much difference any of this stuff makes with 11 days to go. About 100 million votes are still to be cast, 3% undecided. That's 3 million people. That's 3 million is also the number of people who watched the Kamala Harris town hall. If you change the minds of 1% of those 3 million viewers one way or the other, that's only 30,000 votes.
I've got to go. But
I'd be very.
What does Shaquille and Kimberly say? And then I've got to run, and I'll be back on Monday. Well, actually,
I'd be very surprised if the reports coming from economists would change many people's views. I think the old saying is if you get 100 economists in a room, you'll get 100 different answers to a question. So, there are economists that will sit more on the left. There are economists that will sit more on the right. It's very hard to determine that. I don't think it's going to sway through people's views. I would actually be quite surprised if we see another 100 million people vote in this election. That would bring your numbers to around 180 million. I don't really think you're going to see the same sorts of numbers as you saw in 2020, but maybe about 150 million will vote this time compared to 160 million last time. We've had I wouldn't mind. Look, I'm not going to say, but I'm not making this as a prediction, but I wouldn't be surprised to see that number, more in the sort of 140 to 150 range. That's just me. Look, I've said before, I think that there are some issues that she needs to get out from under, and it's probably a little bit too late for her to do that. So, how does this play out? Look, I don't know. I think that another thing to factor into this is that many of the Christian organisations like Christians Today, and I forget the other one that was founded by Billy Graham, they've been accepting quite sizable sums of money from. Sorry.
Shepherd's Purse, the Franklin Graham.
No, I don't think it's that one. But in any case, they've been taking rather sizable sums of money from left-wing people, Bill Gates and many of the other very left-wing and progressive foundations. And that apparently the allegation is that, being representative of 45,000 churches around America, that may have slightly changed the way that some Christian voters have voted based on what they were told in sermons sitting in the pews. So, could that change things? I think both sides would like to get that Christian vote, one, to get them to vote for them, and two, to actually get them out to vote in the first place because they can swing an election. So that'll be interesting to see. Before I hand it over to Kimberly or Jacoby for the audience's sake, just so that they know, I have now told Jacoby on no less than 15 occasions that when I'm looking away off camera, it's because I have another screen and I'm on my phone. So the reason he said that was to try and get a rise out of me, just so the audience knows.
Fair enough. Kim, did you have anything you wanted to add and everything along those lines? I was going to just ask, because I kind of asked it earlier, but I will ask it to everybody on the panel as we only got 10 minutes to go and everything. But one of the things that the Pope said, and I do sometimes hear what he says and everything, is that we've gotten too much into this materialism and individualism kind of space and all along those lines. He was actually speaking to the Catholics, but I think he meant it for the world as well. And he was actually kind of to what you talk about, Kim, was asking folks to kind of like go out there and help people more than they actually do. So he was actually urging the Catholics to reject individualism and rediscover the importance of opening up to others. So and apparently this is in his latest, one of his latest letters. It's called "He Loved Us" and everything. So definitely, what is our thoughts on this? Is this something that we need to be concerned about? This consumerism and individualism and opening up and helping others.
I think that we're focused on the wrong issues. I think that they use majority of the issues to gaslight people to create a divide, which they have been doing very well the last 8 years. I think abortion should not be an issue anymore. Heck, if they're going to do an issue like that about babies' lives, then they need to look at the IVF, considering the latest Supreme Court. I think children getting their hands on guns and killing people right now should be an issue after what the 2 stories were from yesterday. One right here in our own backyard at the high school, and the young man who killed his family. So I think what we need to do is we really need to just start talking about the issues like you would in your company and find the solutions. Sit down and talk like real human beings. Don't throw bills on the table. Don't throw your lobby on the table. Don't stop putting money down and paying your way in. And as far as all of this about Kamala did this or Kamala didn't do this, or I've read somewhere, people were posting Kamala did a horrible job with FEMA, and that's why 260 people died. Well, if that's the logic you're using, then Trump killed 1.6 million, if that's the logic you're doing. But Kamala is not the president right now. Okay. And they have given her way too much credit to give her blame for doing work that wasn't her responsibility as a vice president. I don't know of any vice president that people have said that they did this or didn't do this during their whole vice presidency term. So I think I'm very amused at the lack of intelligence when these posts come up, because I'm like, what vice president had all of these responsibilities? It was not Kamala's responsibility to deal with FEMA. And actually, people don't understand, these policies are already in place. There's nothing she can do to stop it. It's all about what article was issued. I think it's Article 10 to deploy people. And then we had a wonderful conversation yesterday at lunch with someone who's already been transitioned here to Raleigh from the mountains. And the first question out of someone's mouth from our group, unfortunately, I thought it was weird, but I knew what they were getting to, was, what do you think about all of the people who claim that they were trying to get in there, the civilians and other people who were trying to get in there to help, and they were turned away? And her pause and her look, because she was a server at the table, she sat there and said it very direct and point blank that these people shouldn't have been coming. It causes too much chaos. They need to get control of the situation and contain it so that everyone is safe. And when you have too many civilians who don't know, think they know what they're doing and coming in can cause more problems. She's going to be a guest on one of our shows real soon because she is a survivor. She had some interesting pictures of what she had to wake up to the next morning. When she went to bed, she thought everything was going to be fine because they weren't prepared for this. They weren't told that this was going to happen. So, and no one would have ever dreamed a flood would have hit like that. But I'm very amused and very disappointed with the way people talk with such lack of true education. They should know better that none of this was Kamala's responsibility. She was just the vice president. And, as far as the immigration goes, she did work and put together a policy. She did the research, she did the homework, and she actually started posting, or not posting, but putting up some ideas and suggestions, but the country's just too divided to work together. And I'm looking forward to the day that we find a reason to unite again. I hate to say what that reason's going to be, because we know what the last one united us, and that was not COVID. And that's the difference between a good leader and a bad leader.
What
A good
generally
leader will
unites-
unite the
what-
people
what
in the time
generally-
of tragedy, and a bad leader divides them. But go
What
ahead.
we know from movies that what unites America and the world is when space aliens invade. Then everybody.
There you go.
I'd
I'm
like
waiting for
to say something, but
So
Jacoby
this-
had his hand up. So Jacoby, could I go after you, please? If you leave me some
Sure.
time.
So first, I'll start my comments by Shaq. I apologize for even name dropping or pointing that. It was just that popped in the side of my eye, and I got distracted by it. So I apologize. So I'll apologize from the start.
Okay.
So number two, in terms of the thing that Mark brought up about the economists, no, it's not going to be a big issue to move because people aren't going to think about the details. They're only going to think about their pockets. But even more so, again, I'll reiterate, if you look at the spending by the Republican Party on where they're spending, they're not spending talking about the economy anymore. That's dropped down to $5 million, well, $5 billion, whatever they're putting out there in terms of, or $5 million in terms of the ads around just the economy. Everything else is around cultural war issues because they found traction there. So that's where they're spending their money. It's actually 6 times more. So they're spending roughly about $30 million, well, 20 million plus on talking about transgender, millions plus on the other things as well. So they're not going to move stuff based on the economy because right now it's a losing argument for them at this moment. Inflation, yes, it's still on the top of minds, but it's baked in. What Kim was just speaking about, which is the reason why, again, I go back and harken back always to the question, where's the line? Obviously, there's no line in lying. Trump talking about FEMA and all this other stuff and causing these problems. That's not what a leader's is supposed to do, as Kim pointed out correctly. We're supposed to be working together as a unit because these people are desperate. There was actually articles and stories that came out with people already talking about they're going to sell their land because there's nothing left. They're selling it as is because they have nothing. They need money and they have nothing to go back to, and they figure nobody's there to help them. When there are people there that are trying to help them and they can't rebuild because they're afraid of those individuals based on what they're being told and being sold by an individual who's willing to lie for any reason. And that's the part, again, as I harken back to, where is that line? Because lying's not the line. Praising Hitler's not the line. Racism is not the line. Rape is not the line. All these things, where is that line? And again, I'll reiterate, when I saw the gentleman, the Republican strategist, again, that I enjoy listening to, Shermichael, I forget Shermichael's last name, how he said the line for him was the Putin thing. So at least I understand where he's coming from and can listen to him even more so and understand his positions better because I understand that line. But right now, from everywhere else, I don't understand the line. And
Shaq,
how do you do that?
Okay.
So, look, a couple of things. I think Democrats that are honest would acknowledge and would actually say that not everything about their candidates is absolutely perfect, and I think that some of you guys will occasionally actually mention that. That I think is the same view for Republicans, that those people that want to vote for Donald Trump, they know that he's a very flawed individual. He says some stupid things sometimes. I'm not going to get right into all that stuff because I think we've talked about that ad nauseum on previous shows, in relation to the line and all those other issues. But I will say that I think it's the cultural issues. I think you're right about that, Jacoby. I think the Republicans are focusing on that. The ad that they had, she's about they, them, and he's about you. Yeah, that's probably a pretty powerful ad because I think there is a big part of the population of America who, like me here in Australia, feel like we have just been hit in so many different directions. A gender pay gap, and we're all racist, and we're all sexist, and it's all toxic masculinity, and this and that. And most men don't feel like that's what they're doing, and they feel very, very attacked. And that really, I think, was shown up by Hillary Clinton a few years ago. I just want to come to some of Kimberly's comments, though. Kimberly, you talked about gun violence in the United States, and Tim Walz actually made reference to boys that were getting hold of guns and killing themselves with them, and that's a great tragedy, and it's a tragedy in the United States that most other countries don't actually have to experience. We don't really get that here in Australia. I think that those issues are real. I think the issues about healthcare and education funding and all those things are absolutely real, and they need to be discussed. But I think that they've become so politicized that when it comes to something like gun rights, it's, well, what are you going to do, trample on the Second Amendment? Or Democrats will say, we just want to pass common sense gun laws, whilst what is being proposed to become common sense is opposed by a lot of people, and they should be heard out rather than being called heretics. But the last thing I'll say is, what's really disappointed me in this campaign is that if you are going to be, somebody who's a more liberal candidate, a more progressive candidate, there are some serious structural flaws in the economy of the United States. It's been discussed for a long time by people like Elizabeth Warren and many others, including people on the left, such as, for example, private equity, that are gaming the system, that are gaming the laws, that are offshoring profits, stripping down companies. Now, sometimes that's reasonable, but a lot of the time it's not, and it destroys the companies and it destroys the variety of products that you actually have available to you. Things like that, reining in corporate largesse, should be something that Democrats are talking about. Unfortunately, I'm not hearing very much of that. And if you have a look at Occupy Wall Street, this was a time when actually people on the left and the right were really pissed off at the banks. But we're not talking about that anymore. And I think that that's a problem that both Republicans and Democrats need to deal with. And whoever does it first will actually get the most amount of support from the public.
And having said that, we'd like to thank everyone for joining us. Please have a safe and wonderful weekend. Go out and vote. That is the one right they can't take away from us yet. And make sure that you vote with your heart, as well as a little bit of homework and research. Take care, everyone. Have a good weekend.